the son of Lil Jon, a missing adult son.
Nathan Smith, better known as DJ Young Slade, the son of legendary producer Lil Jon, was found dead in a pond near his home in Milton, Georgia. Law enforcement stated there was no foul play. That was the official position. But in the streets, the reaction was different. The streets had questions. The silence from authorities did not quiet the speculation, it amplified it. Today, we are breaking down what happened in those final hours. The timeline, the location, the circumstances that do not sit right with many people watching from a distance. Because when a 27-year-old man with opportunity, talent, family support walks out of his home on a Tuesday morning and never returns, the absence demands more than a brief statement. It demands clarity. Clarity has been limited. This was not just another headline buried in a news cycle. It was a young man with momentum. A young man building something. Someone who left his house that morning like any other day and by nightfall was gone. That sequence matters. The simplicity of it is what makes it heavy. So let's establish who Nathan Smith really was, beyond the short captions and scrolling updates. Because mainstream coverage tends to reduce complex lives to 2 or 3 sentences.
A body has been found in a pond in Milton in the search for the son of rapper Lil Jon.
And Nathan was more than Lil Jon's son. Nathan Smith, known professionally as DJ Young Slade, is 27 years old and living in Milton, Georgia, roughly 30 miles north of Atlanta. That area sits close enough to the city to feel its pulse, but far enough to offer privacy. It is also near where his father built a cultural empire. Lil Jon is not a minor figure in music. He is a Grammy-winning producer, the voice behind Ya. With Usher and Ludacris, the architect of Turn Down for What? Records that defined an era. That was the legacy Nathan was born into. But proximity to greatness does not automatically create identity. And by most accounts, Nathan was not content with writing a famous name. He was a music producer in his own right, an artist, an engineer. He graduated from New York University, one of the most selective institutions in the country. Admission alone requires discipline. Completion requires focus. The detail is important. It speaks to structure, to work ethic. To someone capable of navigating both academic rigor and creative ambition at the same time. While studying, he continued developing his craft. Production, engineering, sound design. This was not casual interest. It was investment. It's a type of long-term effort that suggests a plan. He was not playing with music because he could afford to. He was building within it because he believed in it. The distinction matters. Lil Jon himself described Nathan as amazingly talented, and their bond was visible. Public appearances, social media posts, even competing together on Family Feud in 2024. The episode was lighthearted, but it revealed something deeper. Laughter, comfort, mutual respect. It did not look staged. It looked like a father proud of his son, and a son secure in his father's presence. In an industry known for fractured relationships and public fallout, that stability stood out. Those who knew Nathan echoed the same sentiment. He was described as kind, thoughtful, polite, passionate, warm-hearted. That consistency across voices carries weight. Grief can exaggerate praise, but when friends, colleagues, and family all use similar language independently, a pattern forms. He was not seen as entitled, not arrogant, not chasing attention. In an industry filled with ego and performance, he was reportedly steady and grounded. Professionally, his production work was gaining traction. Engineering sessions, collaborations, portfolio expansion. These were not symbolic efforts. They were measurable steps forward. The education was there. The access was there. More importantly, the effort was there. He appeared to be positioning himself to succeed on his own merit. Which is why the moment news broke that he had gone missing under unusual circumstances, the hip-hop community did not treat it as routine. Attention shifted quickly, because when someone with that background, that network, and that trajectory disappears without clear explanation, the story does not end at no foul play. It begins there. Because nothing about the situation made sense from the jump. The details didn't line up in a way that felt normal, and that's why the timeline matters so much. When people say the timeline is crucial, they're not being dramatic. In cases like this, the timeline is the story. It's the difference between something unfortunate and something that raises deeper concerns. Early Tuesday morning, Nathan Smith, didn't calmly leave his house. He didn't walk out, didn't get in a car and head somewhere with a plan. He ran out on foot. That single detail changes the entire tone of what happened next, because running suggests urgency. It suggests distress. It suggests someone reacting to something they felt they couldn't ignore or escape. And then there was the detail that confused everyone immediately. He left without his phone. In 2025, that is not a small mistake. People don't just forget their phone the way they forget keys or a jacket. For most people, especially someone his age, a phone isn't just a device. It's a calendar, map, a contact list, a work tool. It's music sessions, beats, files, messages, schedules, and access to everyone you need in a moment. It's also your emergency line when something goes wrong. If you're leaving in a hurry, the phone is usually the first thing you grab, not something you leave behind. So leaving it suggests something else was happening. Either he was in extreme panic, in extreme confusion, or in a mental state where normal decision-making wasn't functioning. And that matters, because if rational thinking wasn't present, then what happened afterward can't be analyzed like a normal disappearance. It becomes a situation where safety is the immediate concern, not convenience. The Milton Police Department received a call Tuesday morning about Nathan's disappearance. His family reported him missing, and from the beginning they made it clear this was not normal behavior for him. Law enforcement issued a missing person alert, and the wording in that poster stood out. It said Nathan may be disoriented and in need of assistance. That phrase is standard police language, but it carries a serious meaning. It's not casual. It signals that officers and family believed he could be vulnerable, confused, or unable to protect himself. That word disoriented is the key. It suggests he was not fully grounded in reality in that moment. It points toward a possible mental health crisis, severe anxiety, panic, or another kind of breakdown that can cause someone to act out of character. It could also mean impaired judgment for other reasons. The point is not to label him. The point is to understand what that language implies. The people closest to him, and the authorities responding, believed something was seriously wrong. And the reaction from family and friends backed that up. They weren't simply worried in the way people get worried when someone is late. They were concerned for his safety immediately. That kind of concern usually doesn't come from nothing. It suggests they felt there were signs. Maybe something in his behavior, maybe something in what he said. Maybe a shift that people close to him noticed before Tuesday morning ever arrived. We don't have every detail, but we do know that people who knew him best recognized this wasn't Nathan being Nathan. They treated it like Nathan in crisis. It also matters where this happened. Milton is known as a quiet, affluent suburban area, tree-lined streets, large homes, family neighborhoods where people notice when something is off. It isn't the kind of place where someone vanishes and no one pays attention. In a community like that, when someone goes missing under concerning circumstances, people mobilize quickly. And that's exactly what happened. For days, the search expanded. Milton police, family, friends, and community members moved through neighborhoods and wooded areas. Local businesses were checked. The area was combed by volunteers. His face was pushed across social media, and it didn't stay local for long. Because of who his father is, the story spread nationally. The hip-hop community shared the posts. People watched closely, hoping the outcome would be different this time, hoping he would be found alive. Search parties were organized almost immediately. People weren't just walking around hoping to get lucky. They were checking doorbell cameras and pulling security footage from nearby homes and local businesses. They were trying to reconstruct movement minute by minute, frame by frame. Police were following every lead they could verify, and they were interviewing anyone who might have seen something. In a situation like this, every small detail becomes a potential turning point. And it wasn't treated like a routine missing person case. The reality was obvious. Nathan was the son of a celebrity, which brought media attention. Media attention brings pressure. Pressure forces faster answers, faster updates, and faster explanations. It also means every decision gets watched, and every delay creates room for speculation. So even with resources moving quickly, time still moved faster than everyone wanted. Tuesday passed, Wednesday came and went, Thursday followed, still nothing. With each day, the fear didn't just linger, it intensified. The longer someone is missing, especially when the early information suggests disorientation or mental distress, the chances of a good outcome get worse. That's not gossip. That's reality. Everyone involved understands that. The clock starts immediately, and it doesn't stop just because people are searching. Then Friday morning arrived, and the search took a devastating turn. A body was discovered in a pond. It wasn't far away, not across the state, but some distant location that would require a long explanation. It was near Nathan's residence, near where he lived with his family. A pond that likely existed long before this happened. A pond people in that area probably drive past without thinking twice. The kind of suburban retention pond you see in developments all across America, built for drainage and aesthetics, edged with vegetation, easy to ignore unless you're standing right over it and looking. The Milton Police Department released a statement saying the body was believed to be Nathan Smith. At that point, they were still waiting for the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office to provide official confirmation. Through identification methods like fingerprints, dental records, or other processes, but based on what they had in front of them, location, description, clothing, and the timeline, police believed it was him. Then came the line that shifted the entire public reaction. Police stated that based on the investigation to date, there was no indication of foul play. That's the phrase that made people stop and reread the statement. No indication of foul play. The meaning of that is direct. Authorities were signaling this looked accidental, or possibly self-inflicted, and that there was no evidence suggesting another person physically harmed him. In other words, they were moving toward the conclusion that nobody else was responsible. And that's where the streets started asking questions. Not because people wanted drama, but because the details didn't feel clean. When a case is described as unusual circumstances from the beginning, and the end result is a body found close to home, the public naturally pays attention to what is being said and what is not being said. The official statement may have been calm, but the situation itself didn't feel simple. So here's why people started looking at this differently, and why the conversation didn't end with the press release. The first major issue people focused on was the mental state question. Police said Nathan left under unusual circumstances and may have been disoriented. That implies something was affecting his judgment. It could point to a mental health crisis. It could suggest a substance-related issue. It could suggest something else entirely that caused confusion or panic. But the reason people got stuck on this is because, by most public accounts, Nathan seemed to be doing well. He was working on music, had been visible with his father. He had just been on Family Feud with him. He appeared connected to his family and moving forward professionally. So people started asking where this sudden crisis came from and what might have been happening behind the scenes that the public never saw. In the music industry, and especially in hip-hop, mental health struggles are real and often hidden until the worst moment. That isn't speculation. That's a pattern the culture has witnessed repeatedly. There have been artists who looked successful, looked fine, looked like they were winning, while privately dealing with depression, addiction, or deeper battles they kept out of view. Mac Miller, Juice WRLD, DMX, the list is long, and the common thread is how often the pain stayed invisible until it couldn't be contained anymore. So it isn't impossible that Nathan was fighting something. Depression doesn't discriminate. Anxiety doesn't care about money, education, or family connections. Mental illness can hit anyone, at any time, and sometimes the people who seem the most put together are the ones carrying the most privately.
Yes.
That's why the word disoriented carried so much weight. It suggested that whatever happened was not just about location. It was about state of mind. Because some people become experts at hiding it. They learn how to smile while carrying pressure. They learn how to function publicly while privately unraveling. They show up to sessions, events, family gatherings, and nobody sees the weight building underneath. That reality is uncomfortable, but it is real. And when something finally breaks, it can look sudden to everyone watching from the outside. What stood out in Nathan's case was how abrupt it appeared. Running out of the house early in the morning without his phone is not gradual behavior. It suggests something acute, something immediate, something that felt urgent in that moment. Crises that build slowly often show signs over time, but actions like that imply a trigger, specific event, thought, or reaction that made him feel he had to move right then. Was it a panic attack so severe he felt trapped and needed air? Was it paranoia convincing him he was in danger? Was it a reaction to something that temporarily altered his perception of reality? These are not accusations. They are possibilities that investigators consider in cases involving sudden, disoriented behavior. Toxicology results, when completed, can sometimes clarify whether substances were involved. But until those findings are public, any conclusion remains incomplete. There is also the possibility of underlying mental health conditions that were not fully treated or not treated effectively. Bipolar disorder can involve manic episodes where judgment becomes impaired and actions become impulsive. Schizophrenia often emerges in a person's 20s and can cause breaks from reality. PTSD can trigger intense fight-or-flight responses without warning. None of these possibilities confirm anything about Nathan specifically. They simply illustrate how quickly a person's mental state can shift under certain conditions. Without detailed information from the family or medical findings, the full picture of what he may have been dealing with privately remains unknown. Then, there is the second issue people focused on, the pond. Nathan's body was found in a pond near his home. If you're familiar with Milton, Georgia, you understand it as a suburban area with upscale neighborhoods, golf courses, and retention ponds scattered throughout developments. These bodies of water are common in Georgia communities. They manage stormwater runoff and often blend into the landscape. They are not hidden, but they are not heavily monitored either, so the central question became simple but heavy. How did he end up in that pond? Was he attempting to hide from something he believed was chasing him? Was he disoriented and accidentally fell in? Did he enter the water intentionally? Was visibility low? Did he misjudge distance or footing? Each scenario carries different implications, and without direct evidence, the space between them leaves room for doubt. Police stated there was no indication of foul play. So that means they found no evidence suggesting someone pushed him, restrained him, or directly caused his death through violence. There's no visible signs of a struggle. There's no witnesses placing another person with him at the time. No immediate physical indicators pointing to an altercation. But it is important to understand what that phrase does and does not mean. No foul play does not equal full understanding. It means investigators, based on what they have, do not see proof of another individual's involvement. That distinction matters. Drowning investigations are complex. Medical examiners look for water in the lungs to confirm whether drowning occurred while the person was alive. They assess for injuries that may have happened before entering the water. They conduct toxicology screenings for drugs or alcohol. They evaluate the scene to determine how someone could have entered the water and whether it aligns with accident or intent. All of this requires time. And until those results are finalized and explained, the public is operating with partial information. The third issue people questioned was the timeline. From Tuesday morning to Friday morning, 3 full days passed before his body was located in a pond not far from his home. That gap raises unavoidable questions. Where was he during that period? Was he alive for part of those 3 days, moving through the area in a confused state? Did he enter the pond on Tuesday and remain undiscovered until Friday? If so, how was the area searched? How close were search efforts to that location during those days? In cases like this, timing can either clarify events or deepen uncertainty. And until the medical examiner establishes an estimated time of death, the timeline remains one of the most significant unanswered elements of the entire situation. Or did something happen in that window of time that has not yet been fully explained? That gap between Tuesday morning and Friday morning remains one of the most sensitive parts of this entire case. Investigators will have to account for it carefully. The medical examiner's role becomes critical here. Through autopsy, they determine estimated time of death by examining decomposition, tissue condition, and environmental factors. They look for injuries, for defensive wounds, for anything that would suggest a struggle. Toxicology screenings test for the presence of drugs or alcohol. Organs are examined. Every physical detail becomes a piece of a larger reconstruction. The condition of the body can reveal whether someone was submerged for multiple days or entered the water closer to the time of discovery. Water temperature, depth, and the surrounding environment all influence how a body changes over time. If he had been in that pond for 3 days, there would be specific forensic indicators consistent with that duration. If he entered the water later, that shifts the timeline and raises additional questions about where he may have been before. Investigators also examine whether there were objects nearby, whether anything suggests accidental entry, and whether the environment aligns with the conclusion being drawn. None of that is guesswork. It is methodical, and it takes time. Until those official findings are released, the public is left with incomplete information. And when information is incomplete, speculation fills the silence. Social media has not been quiet. Theories have circulated at every level, from measured and plausible to extreme and disconnected from evidence. That pattern is predictable. When a young man connected to a high-profile figure dies under circumstances labeled unusual, people begin trying to connect dots, whether those dots belong together or not. That brings us to the industry angle. Anytime someone closely connected to a major figure in hip-hop dies unexpectedly, certain narratives appear almost immediately. Some suggest hidden agendas. Others claim the industry itself is responsible. There are voices that frame these events as sacrifices, secret rituals, or consequences of knowing too much. Those theories spread quickly because they tap into long-standing mistrust of power structures inside entertainment. But separating emotion from evidence is necessary. In most cases, tragedies like this turn out to be exactly what investigators initially describe mental health crises: accidents or personal struggles that escalated beyond control. The music industry can be ruthless. It can amplify pressure, can expose young artists to environments that test stability. But jumping directly to elaborate conspiracies without proof does not clarify the truth. It distorts it. Lil Jon has been in the industry for decades. His reputation has been built on high-energy music, collaborations across genres, and consistency. He has worked with artists ranging from Usher to LMFAO. Publicly, he has always projected pride in his son and visible affection toward his family. The joint statement he released with Nathan's mother, Nicole, was direct and deeply personal. They spoke about loving him with all their hearts, about how proud they were, about making sure that in their last moments together, he understood how much he meant to them. That language does not read like something calculated. It reads like grief. It is important to acknowledge that grief while still examining the broader context. Hip-hop has seen dark chapters: exploitation, manipulation, unrealistic expectations, and environments where mental health concerns are dismissed or minimized. Young artists sometimes struggle privately while publicly appearing successful. Legacy children, those born into fame, face a unique pressure. They carry a name that opens doors, but that same name can create expectations impossible to fully satisfy. Building an independent identity while standing in the shadow of a legend can be isolating. That does not prove anything sinister happened. It does, however, raise a valid question about pressure, about internal battles that may not be visible from the outside. The weight of being Lil Jon's son, while trying to become DJ Young Slade in his own right, could have been heavy in ways outsiders would never fully see. And if there were struggles, they may not have been obvious until it was too late. Point number 5 was the phrase that kept resurfacing in every conversation: unusual circumstances. That wording did not appear by accident. Law enforcement tends to choose language carefully, especially in public statements. When they describe a disappearance that way, it signals that something about the initial situation did not align with ordinary behavior. At the same time, it is deliberately vague. It acknowledges irregularity without exposing private details. So what qualifies as unusual? It could mean his family witnessed behavior that felt alarming. Perhaps he was speaking in ways that didn't connect logically. Perhaps he appeared paranoid, fearful, or disconnected from reality. When someone's behavior shifts rapidly and without explanation, those closest to them recognize it immediately. That type of break can look sudden from the outside, but internally it may have been building. There could have been a triggering event, an argument, distressing news, something he saw or heard that pushed him into crisis mode. It could have been as subtle as a message that caused panic. If there had been credible evidence of a threat from another person, police would likely have pursued that angle aggressively. Their public statements suggest they did not find proof supporting that path. Still, unusual behavior can stem from perceived danger, not actual danger. Mental health crises sometimes cause individuals to flee from threats that exist only in their own perception. There are other possibilities that people have raised: a domestic issue, a confrontation, something witnessed that made him run. Yet none of those scenarios have been confirmed by investigators, and without confirmation, they remain speculation. The reality is that unless law enforcement releases more specific findings, or the family chooses to speak publicly about what they observed before he left, some details may remain private. Families are not obligated to disclose painful moments simply because the public is curious. Privacy is not concealment, it can also be protection. What followed the announcement of his death was an immediate response from the hip-hop community. Artists, producers, DJs, and fans expressed support for Lil Jon and the Smith family. Social media filled with tributes. Photos circulated. Messages of prayer and remembrance spread across timelines. Individuals who had worked with Nathan or crossed paths with him shared stories about his character and professionalism. The tone was not sensational, it was reflective. One aspect that stood out was how quickly the conversation shifted toward mental health. Multiple artists used the moment to speak openly about their own battles with depression and anxiety. Some encouraged others to check on friends and colleagues. Others admitted that success does not insulate anyone from internal struggle. That honesty carried weight because it challenged a long-standing narrative in hip-hop that strength must always look unbreakable. There is a cultural layer here that cannot be ignored. Young black men are often raised with the expectation to suppress vulnerability, to endure quietly, to handle pressure without complaint. Therapy is sometimes stigmatized. Medication is sometimes dismissed. Emotional expression is often framed as weakness. Those patterns create environments where people learn to function publicly while suffering privately. This tragedy forced that conversation back into the open, not in a dramatic way, but in a necessary one. It reminded people that appearances can be misleading, that talent and opportunity do not cancel out pain, that checking on someone should not wait until something irreversible happens. That mindset of silence, of suppression, of handling everything alone is not strength. It is pressure without release, and over time, pressure without release becomes dangerous. Too many cases, it becomes fatal. If there were more honest conversations, more access to resources, more acceptance of vulnerability, especially among young men who feel they have to appear unbreakable, some tragedies might be interrupted before they reach the point of no return. If anyone watching this is dealing with depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, or any kind of mental health crisis, reaching out is not weakness. It is survival. In the United States, the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is available 24 hours a day. Speaking to someone you trust can create space between a moment of crisis and a permanent decision. Therapy, support groups, medical care, these are tools, not labels. Staying here matters, even when your mind tells you it doesn't, even when the weight feels private and isolating. Your life carries value beyond what you can see in your lowest moment. As for Nathan Smith, his life cannot be reduced to the circumstances of his death. He was a son, a producer, a graduate, a young man building a future. Those facts remain true regardless of how his final hours unfolded. His family and friends are now left navigating a loss that cannot be reversed, while the public continues to analyze and question from a distance. Grief in the spotlight is a different kind of burden. Forces people to mourn while knowing millions are watching. The hip-hop community's response showed that beneath the headlines and speculation, there is still solidarity. There is still recognition that behind every trending topic is a real person. Behind every statement is a real family absorbing shock in real time. Respect matters in moments like this. Restraint matters. Because this is not content. It is not a storyline. It is a life that ended too soon. If there is anything to take from this, it is not rumor. It is not theory. It is awareness. Awareness that mental health cannot be postponed. Awareness that unusual behavior should be taken seriously. Awareness that pressure, even when hidden behind success, can erode quietly. Nathan's story leaves unanswered questions. It leaves a timeline that investigators will clarify as fully as possible. It leaves a community reflecting on what might have been happening beneath the surface. But above all, it leaves a reminder that prevention begins with conversation, and conversation begins with courage. May he rest in peace. And may the lessons drawn from this moment reach further than speculation ever could.